I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Okay, now we're good to go.
Okay, let me share my screen. Oh.
Well,
it says recording stopped.
We are still live streaming, so go ahead.
Okay. Let me. Sorry. Sorry, I just can't.
You can hit from beginning on the upper left there if you want.
Let me do this. Here. Well.
There we go.
Well, welcome everyone to the AFO Cafés. I am Juan Manuel from the Communications Committee, and these are informal science conversation about all about things birds. Well, the AFO is a non-profit organization focused on the study and conservation of birds and their natural habitats. We are reached between professional and amateur ornithologists, and we have a strong focus on Latin America, speaking about outreach, scientific meetings, and grants for research. We'd like to remind you that by the beginning of August, we're having the second Ornithological Congress of the Americas at Gramado, Brazil, where the Association of Field Ornithologists will also be partnering the Neotropical Ornithological Society and also the Brazilian Ornithological Society. Next AFO Café will feature Jay Wright from Metro Parks Toledo, who will talk about blue jays and oaks, a seed dispersal mutualism shaping hardwood forests. The AFO Cafés are sponsored by Avinet Research Supplies. So if you work with birds or bats and you need equipment, you can purchase mist nets, pesolas, and color bands from Avinet. If you want to nominate yourself or you know someone who would like to speak in future AFO Cafés, please email us with their name and subject of the conversation to afo.communications@gmail.com. And if you enjoy this event, you can become a member today and support the continuation of this community and engage more events. So now we'll feature Antonella, who has started, Dr. Antonella Gorosábel, who has started her undergrad career at Buenos Aires Zoo. She did her bachelor thesis at the University of Buenos Aires, studying capybaras mortality at the Iberas marshes. She also pursued her Ph.D. career studying ecosystem services provided by species in conflict at the Southeastern Buenos Aires province agroecosystems, advised by Julieta Pedrana and Néstor Maceira. She advanced on her postdoc career, searching for conservation strategies through the development of hydrodams at the Santa Cruz River, using bird species as indicators, and has been recently awarded by a Marie Curie postdoc award for doing research in Copenhagen. So, Anto, it's up to you now.
Great. Well, thank you, Juan. Thank you very much for the presentation and your kind words. Let me see if I can share. Here. Okay, can you see?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And the title of this talk is Conservation of the Ruddy-headed Goose from the Plot to a Landscape Perspective. And the idea of this talk is to tell you a little bit about the research, all the research lines that we have in our group called Cauca Colorado, which is the Spanish name for the Ruddy-headed Goose. So first of all, I would like to, sorry, let me move here. So let me introduce to you to our star species, the Ruddy-headed goose. This species is the smallest one of the 5 species in the Chloephaga genus. All of them are endemic from South America, and the red-headed goose is considered a migratory species, and is usually associated with the upland goose and the ashy-headed goose, especially on the wintering areas. As you can see here, the upland goose, this species has a sexual dimorphism. This one is the male and this is the female. And the ashy-headed goose and the red-headed goose, they do not have any sexual dimorphism. So we have 2 separate populations of the red-headed goose that recent studies suggested that there are genetically isolated populations. One is located in the Falkland Islands, which the population is sedentary and stable one, while the continental population breeds in the south of Argentina and Chile from October to April, and then at least part of them migrate to the wintering areas in the southeast of Buenos Aires province from May to September. Based on historical data, there were proposed 2 potential migration routes, one through the Andes and the other one from through the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. So this continental population has a lot of conflicts, unfortunately, with the human activities. Well, in the wintering areas, which is, well, one thing I have to mention, that is these areas, it's a very, economically speaking, it's a very important area for wheat production. So these species are accused of consumption, trampling, and uprooting wheat. As I told you before, the red-headed goose is usually associated with the upland goose and the ashy-headed goose in these areas. So in 1931, the 3 species were declared as agricultural plagues, and hunting was allowed in all the country, and farmers also persecute them with planes when they saw them on their fields. Also, several outfitters promoted the hunting of these species. In the breeding areas, we have different problems. On one hand, there is an increase in the predation because of exotic and invasive species. Then we have a degradation of the breeding areas because of overgrazing of the livestock, principally sheep, and also the people recollect the eggs. So because of this and the alarming decreasing of the 3 species, in 2008, Argentinian government forbid the hunting of them, and the upland goose was declared as vulnerable, the ashy-headed goose as endangered, and the red-headed goose as critically endangered. And the last estimation said that we have only less than 800 individuals. So this species is in this population, sorry, is in problems. So the idea of this talk is to tell you about the different research lines that we have in our group. They are mainly located in the wintering areas and along the migration routes. And I will tell you a little bit of each one of these lines. So first of all, in the wintering areas, the first question that we had was, where are these species and how many of them we have here in the wintering areas? So we wanted to assess the effects of the environmental and anthropogenic variables on the shellfish distribution and produce distribution maps, and then estimate the abundance of these species. So for this, we conducted linear transects along randomly selected tracks. We cover 110 tracks, covering 1,600 kilometers. And each time we detected a flock, we measured the distance to the center of the flock size. Sorry, this is in the middle. I don't know if you can see it. Here. The flock size, the species composition, and the habitat type. So with this information, we divided the area into a grid using cells and put the presence data of each species in this grid. Along the transects, we also registered the habitats we found along the transects that were divided in 4 different types: the croplands, grazing lands, wetlands, and other native habitats. This information, together with satellite images, we used to construct land use map of all the area. So you can see that all the different habitats are represented. Finally, constructing a geographic information system, we obtained 17 different spatial variables that were divided into environmental variables, human impact variables, and landscapes. So with all this information and with the data of present absence data, we estimated we constructed habitat suitability models using generalized additive models. So the best model that we selected is represented here in this map, where you can see in dark violet the areas where the 3 species have the highest habitat suitability. And these areas are characterized by low elevations surrounded by water bodies. These landscapes are heterogeneous. They have a mix of croplands and grazing fields, which are the preferred environments for the 3 species. And they are located far away from centers of human activities. So then, using the distance that we measured when we saw each one of the flocks and the number of flocks that we observed, we calculated the abundance using distance sampling methodology and the distance package in R. So to be able to compare the populations in the different parts of the wintering area, we divided the wintering area into 3 categories with low, medium, and high habitat suitability. And of course, in red, you can see they are the high category. And we estimated the abundance in each one of these categories and in total. So for the upland goose, we estimated that there were in all the wintering areas 3.72 individuals per square kilometer. Sorry. We calculated 1.762 individuals of the ashy-headed goose and 0.0 individuals per square kilometer for the ruddy-headed goose. And one important thing I need to mention here is that we only found these species in the areas in red. It was the only places we found these species in the whole wintering area. So this could mean that the actual wintering area for this species is much, much smaller than we originally thought. So after traveling all along the wintering areas, we realized that these species were using mainly private fields. So we asked about what was the perception of the farmers of the shellies and of the human conflicts. For this, we conducted 82 interviews in the different counties of the wintering area that you can see in green in the map, and we visited each one of the private establishments. So we asked, first of all, we asked about the abundance that they perceived, and 70% of the farmers said that there were less shell geese than in the past. Also, that the winter crops were the main environments that you can find shell geese. As winter crops, we define mainly wheat, barley, and oats. So then we asked about the damage they perceived, and almost 70% of the farmers said that they perceived to have damage in the last 5 years. And from this group, 36% of the farmers perceived a severe damage. And in relation to the historical damage, almost 60% of them perceived that they had less damage than before. And finally, 50% of the farmers cannot coexist with shell geese in wheat, oat, and barley, and in planted pastures, and apply control methods. So based on these alarming results, and on the fact that there were no that the farmers did not have any damage estimations in their fields. So this information is about perception. So we decided to quantify the potential damages of the shell geese grazing on wheat, particularly because of the economic importance of this crop in this area, and identify their role in the ecosystem services. Ecosystem services are defined as the benefits people can obtain from ecosystems, and birds are a very important part of the ecosystem, so they play an important role in the provision of these benefits. So we selected 9 wheat fields, which were private and productive fields, located in the high category of habitat suitability for the 3 species. And in each of one of these fields, we took several measurements along the crop cycle. First of all, we conducted a stratified design where we selected plots of 1 square meter, and we applied 2 treatments, grazed and ungrazed plots. In the ungrazed plots, we put these cages that the aim was to prevent shell geese to graze in these areas. And in each field, we conducted transects counting the feces. We use this count as an indirect estimation of the number of shell geese that were grazing in each field, and we use that as a grazing intensity. And all these measurements were analyzed using mixed generalized linear models. So first of all, before I tell you about the results, I want to show you this timeline so you can have an idea of how we did this study. So shell geese arrive at the wintering area at the end of May, and they departure at the end of August or beginning of September. So this is the wintering period. For this study, we visit this area 7 times along this timeline, and the visits were according to the wintering period, and to the crop cycle. So all these visits can be divided in 3 different stages or periods, where the first period is characterized by it was before the wheat emergence and with shell geese presence. The second period was after the wheat emergence and the shell geese, and of course shell geese present. And the last period was without shell geese. In this period, they already started their migration to the south. So at the first visit, we put the plots and the cages. In the second period, we took one of the measurements that is, you can see here in this picture, that I am taking a photograph with my cell phone to the plot, and we use that to calculate the wheat cover of each plot. After the shell geese departure, we calculated the number of tillers per wheat plant. And in December, where the crop was near to be harvested, we measured 5 different measurements of the crop yield. And along the first and the second period, we counted and collect feces. So, well, here is a bigger picture where you can see how I'm taking the photograph. And each photograph was analyzed using the image shape, where we calculated the percentage of the image that was covered by wheat. So after analyzing this data, we found a significant decrease in grazed plots and of wheat cover in grazed plots and with higher grazing intensity. However, when we analyzed the number of tillers per plant, we did not find any significant differences between grazing intensities or treatment. And also, in the 5 different measurements that we took of the yield, we did not find any difference. So the other part of the study was about the ecosystem services or the benefits that the shell geese could be providing. And for this part of the study, we divided this in 2 periods, before the wheat emergence and after the wheat emergence. We analyzed the nitrogen and the phosphorus on the feces, and we found significant differences between these two periods, where after the wheat emergency, we have higher nutrient input for both nutrients. And also we conducted a microhistological analysis on the feces And we found that before wheat emergence, shelgies were eating 13 species of plants considered weeds. And 90% of the diet was composed by only 5 species, and the ryegrass was the most important one. And after the wheat emergence, they only eat wheat. So the main conclusions of this study was that, well, definitely shelgies were eating wheat, and the wheat cover decreased with shelging intensities. But the number of tiller per plant and all the different measurements of the wheat yield, we did not find any differences between the treatments and the grazing intensity. So this could be showing that wheat plants are recovering after the grazing, after the shelgies grazing in the first stages of the crop. And currently, the number of shelgies that we have in the wintering area are not causing an economic loss to the crop, which is a very good news. Well, on the other hand, the benefits, the differences between the nutrient input could be related to the difference in the diet and the nutritional value of these plants. The crops are usually fertilized, so it's expected that they have a higher nutritional value. And the wheat consumption is definitely could be seen as a benefit from having shelgies on the fields, and especially the consumption of ryegrass, which is a very problematic species in the region. And one last thing to mention is that after the wheat emergence, because of the agronomic practice of this area, we have very little availability of weeds because they apply herbicides. So it could be very interesting to know what is happening and what the shelgies are eating in agroecological fields. Well, the other research line that we have in our group is the studies along the migration routes. For this, we wanted to document the first complete migration cycle of the Ruddy-headed goose and the identification of the different stopovers, the breeding and wintering areas. So for this, we captured 6 individuals at the end of the wintering period using footnoose carpets that were monitored from the moment we put them to the moment that we remove them. And these traps were put in the roosting areas that were always ponds and wetlands. Here in the picture, you can see one of the individuals that we captured that is attached by the leg to one of the carpets. And here in the other picture, you can see part of the team that is putting these traps. So every time we capture an individual, we took morphological measurements. We took a blood sample to define the sex. Remember that this species has no sexual dimorphism. And we equipped these individuals with solar satellite transmitters with a Teflon that was attached to the body with a Teflon harness. All this procedure took around 30 minutes, and the birds were released as soon as possible in the same place that they were captured. And once they start moving, we obtain the geographical locations using Argos service. So the main results that we found here, you can see a map where you can see all the migration of all the individuals. And in blue, in light blue, you can see the spring migration, which is from the wintering areas to the breeding grounds. And in red, the autumn migration from the breeding grounds to the wintering areas. In the wintering area, you can see the black dots that they are the actual wintering area of these birds. And here, the breeding grounds in the south of Chile, actually. The individuals that we capture breed in the south of Chile. Well, you can see that the spring migration is done mainly over land, but close to the coastline, and the autumn migration is mainly overseas. In the you can see the circles in blue, the spring stopovers, and the autumn, and in red, the autumn stopovers. And the locations of these stopovers are closer to the final destination of each migration. So after knowing all this, we wanted to compare what was happening in the spring migration versus the autumn migration. And for this, we use GLMs. And we did not find any differences between these two migrations in the travel distance or the speed migration. But we did find in the migration, in the duration of the migration, when the autumn migration took almost 40 days as average, while spring migration only took 2 weeks. And this was because we also found a significant differences in the number of days spent in the stopovers. In autumn migration, these individuals spent an average of 32 days, and in spring migration, only 7. So the main conclusions that we obtained from the study was, first of all, that the individuals that we captured used the eastern migration route. Remember that there was another one proposed over through here. So this could be explained by several factors. One of them is the flocking behavior. These species migrate in groups. They have been seen together with the upland goose. And in another study published by our group in 2015, we also found that the upland goose use this migration route. From the different years that we follow these individuals, we found that they have a strong fidelity of the migration routes, but the birds do not necessarily use the same stopover sites. So these, after knowing this, we have different questions, such as what is happening in these stopovers that the birds are changing them. And well, definitely the spring migration is faster. As I told you before, is because the time they spend in the stopover is longer in the autumn migration. And this could be because in spring they have better foraging conditions, the daylight is longer, so they have more time to feed. And probably they could be avoiding strong winds that in the area are from September to January in general. And because of the location of these stopovers, we can say that the first part of the migration is faster, and they start stopping when they are closer to the final destination. So with this information, we realized that knowing the dates at which these birds leave the wintering grounds might help to predict the arrival date at stopovers or breeding sites. So we wanted to examine the effects of meteorological conditions on the decision of the Ruddy-headed goose to start spring migration, to see if we can predict when they are going to start migrating. For this, we compare these weather conditions between the departure date versus the 15 preceding days using binomial generalized linear models. In this case, we use the identity of the bird, the year, and the interaction between them as random effects. The best model that we found said that the meteorological conditions to migrate were defined with high wind speed, good visibility, and low percentage of cloud cover. And this information is very important because it could be used to prevent potential human-shell gaze conflicts to escalate along the migration routes. For instance, different mitigation measures could be applied to reduce the bird collision with different human activities that you found throughout the migration routes. And these measures could be intensified in the period that these birds are expected to migrate through that area. Another important thing to highlight is that based on the tracking of these individuals, we found out that the Ruddy-headed geese used 4 national parks as stopovers. So we wanted to monitor these areas inside the national parks and the area surrounding. For this, we travel from Buenos Aires province, is where we live, to each one of the national parks that are located in the south of Patagonia, Argentina, near the coast, and assess the number of shelgies and the potential conflicts. And for this, we signed an agreement between INTA, CONICET, and the National Park Agency to be able to annually monitor the stopovers area inside each one of the national parks. We are going to do this with the help of all the rangers that are working in these parks. Well, here you can see some pictures of the national parks, which are very beautiful places. And this is an ongoing investigation. Also, another ongoing investigation is analyzing the impacts different human activities have on the ruddy-headed goose migration route. And one very big activity that we found was the construction of 2 hydroelectric dams in one of the stopovers of the ruddy-headed goose on the Santa Cruz River. Here you can see the map, sorry, there you can see. Here you can see the map of the migration, and in this area over here, there is the Santa Cruz River from the mountains to the coast, and the dams are being constructed here and here. In the stars are indicated, the stars indicate the areas where we found the different species of shelgies, and the yellow stars that are here and here are the places where we saw ruddy-headed goose. So we wanted to monitor and assess the potential effects of these dams on the ruddy-headed goose stopovers. And to do this, we are doing seasonal monitoring by linear transects, by boat, by foot, and with a vehicle. And we are also putting camera traps in all the area surrounding the river. Here in the top, you can see a male of the upland goose that was captured in one of the photographs. So in this, with these methodologies, we want to know the number of shelgies in the area to detect the presence of data along all the river, and also identify the different predators that they have in these sites, and evaluate if this area is a good place to reproduce for the upland goose and the ruddy-headed goose. So using this information, we are actually constructing habitat suitability models, and we are applying scenario modeling to evaluate the effects of the different activities along the time. Well, before I finish, I would like to tell you about some of the research that we are also doing now, and some of the ideas that we have in mind to do in the future. First of all, we are assessing the potential effects of the construction of these two hydroelectric dams on the community of birds. Shelby species can be used as flagship species to detect environmental changes, but we need to know what is happening with the rest of the species of birds in that area. Also, another major human activity along the migration routes are the wind farms and the high voltage network that is associated to them. So we want to identify potential hazard zones along the Patagonia coast. And also evaluate the cumulative effects of wind farms in the shelling migration. And regarding the wintering areas, we want to assess the behavioral activities at these sites and study and conduct parasitological studies based on blood samples and on the feces sample. So at the end, I would like to introduce to you to all the team, which this team is led by Julieta Pedrana. And I want to use this opportunity to thank Antarctic Research Trust and the scientific director, Clement Putz, INTA and CONICET for funding all our research. And well, here you can find the webpage of the group where you can download the different publications that we have to know a little bit more about the different studies that we are doing. And here are my emails if you want to contact me in another moment. So, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anto, for the talk.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone has any question.
I have a couple of questions I would like to ask. First, according to my behavioral ecology focus, do you have any idea if family groups stay together after hatching when they come from Patagonia to Buenos Aires?
No, we actually we are not sure about it. There is there are a lot of studies of Natalia Cosa that she documented that they start flocking after they breed before they migrate. So there are big groups of birds and they migrate all together. And there are several observations along the migration routes that people saw them in very big groups and mixed flocks as well.
Okay. And the other question I had is not so behavioral ecology, but according to the weather we are having the last years, are you planning to see if there's any effect of the drafts we had on Buenos Aires on the wheat yield and the shell geese grazing effect?
Well, actually, the year that we conducted the quantification of the potential damage, there was a lot of raining. Yeah, the opposite. It was an opposite situation. And the thing when there is a lot of raining, that farmers delayed the sowing period, the sowing dates. So the shell geese are spending more time in fields without wheat. But yes, it could be very interesting to study this effect because, well, probably is going to be happening a lot to alter the two situations.
Okay. Well, Valeria, you have your hand raised. We are not hearing you.
I can hear you.
Sorry. Hi,
Hello.
Antonella. Very good. I was late for the talk, but I think I missed just a few parts. I was wondering if the extended period during the autumn migration, you think it's due to the presence of the juveniles that are coming for the first time to the wintering areas, or what is your idea about the reason for that delayed period of migration compared to the spring one?
Yes, well, that's a very good question, actually. We have several hypotheses about it. First of all, before they migrate in spring, they are eating a lot because they are in wheat fields. So the birds are in very good conditions to migrate because they have a lot of food. And we know from other species that the reproduction moment is very stressful for the individuals. So it could be a possibility that they need to stop more. And also in spring, there are other species of geese travel very fast to get to the breeding areas and find the best place to reproduce. That's also one possibility, that they are in a hurry. And also the wind conditions that are in Patagonia, that are very strong winds from September to January. So they may be hurrying to not get that. but we really don't know what the situation with the juveniles, because when we always capture the individuals in the wintering areas, and we did not know the age of them. So
Okay,
we don't know.
and there's
Yes.
one more question then. Is there any, are you thinking about capturing them in their breeding areas? I know that's difficult because of permits. They are breeding, so authorities are not willing to give permits. I know that, and I understand that. But, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe at least weight, for example, obtaining their weights, maybe not so invasive. I mean, there are ways of that they can go themselves weight in a with some kind of intelligent devices, something like that. Have you thought about that, or?
Yes, we actually thought about that, but it's much harder to first to find the Ruddy-headed Goose in Patagonia, yes, because they are in smaller groups. In the wintering area, they are living in very big flocks, and they are they have a lot of fidelities in that areas. So we usually know that they are always using the same fields, so it's easier to find them first. And because they are in very big groups, it's easier to capture at least a few of them in a few nights.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, thank you.
I mean, well, it's very hard also to find the nests of these species, because it's inside of all the grass in Patagonia, so it's very difficult. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question. I was wondering, oh, sorry, Santiago, you could go first if you want. Okay, my question's quick. I was interested in what the farmers were perceiving of the species and then the data that you found. And I was wondering if you all had the opportunity to go back and present that data to the farmers and what their responses were.
Yes, yes. We did several workshops with them in different cities along the wintering area. Most of them we have a very nice feedback from them. We have some of them that were very angry because they wanted to still hunt them. So we also have that situation. But most of them, they are aware of the problem, of these problems, of the conservation problems these species have. And because we have been studying these species in the wintering area for more than 10 years, so we have a lot of communication with stakeholders in that area. So we are hoping that the perception is getting better, but there are still, some of them are still persecuting and hunting the species. So the legal controls are a very important part of in this area to prevent the hunting of them. Yeah.
Well, Santiago, you can go ahead if you want.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, congratulations to the whole team. It's really fantastic the work that you have been done and the information that you have been gathering. I remember 10 years ago, 13 years ago, and this was a dream to have this information that you have get, and I can guess the effort that you have put in the fields to make all this work. So first of all, congratulations and thank you very much for that. Just some questions that I have. I'm not following very close the work on this species, but I was wondering if you have now some tendencies of the population. I mean, if the population is stable, is this growing, is this reducing? That's my first question, if you have that information, understand?
No, they are decreasing. The 3 species of migratory shell geese are decreasing, and we compare our results with historical data and other studies that were done, and we all agree that the populations are decreasing. And also there are different studies in the reproduction area, in the breeding area, sorry, that they're also indicating that these species are decreasing. Yes. And thank you for your kind words.
Also, you mean in these last 10 years that I think that we have been collecting better data. Also in these last 10 years, it is decreasing?
Well, actually, the data that we have on population abundance is from 2012 and 2011. So it would be very interesting to travel all the same transects and compare the results. Yes, but what the general estimations are indicated that they are not in a very good situation. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A second question. I was wondering the work that you are doing in the area of the Santa Cruz River and the dams.
Yes.
Las represas de Río Santa Cruz. I was wondering if you are working in cooperation with that project. I mean, if you can get finance to the work from this project or not. That's I was wondering.
Yes, we have an agreement with the company, and we are working together. So we have funding to go there and do all this monitoring, also in areas where they are actually constructing the dams, which is not open to the public. So we are also monitoring those areas. Yes.
So sorry, they are giving money to the team and logistics help.
It's an agreement between CONICET and the company, and yes, our team is working in cooperation. Yes.
Okay, great. Good news that. Another question that if the 3 species of cauquenes are you believe that they are decreasing the same way, the populations, or there is, I mean, in comparison, in percentage between these species, I mean, the tendencies of the reduction may be more or less the same. What do you think about that? I don't know if you have data or if you have personal impression, what you can say.
Well, the Ruddy-headed goose is what is in critically endangered, so the population is much smaller than the rest of them. We actually, I don't think it's a matter of that the farmers or the outfitters hunt these species more than the other ones, because mainly in the wintering area they live all together. But it could be related to the ecological requirements that the species have, and are more particular than the other species. The reproduction area is much smaller for this one that, for instance, for the upland goose, which breeds in a bigger area. So I think that all these facts are contributing to the more declining of the upland, of the Ruddy-headed goose. Sorry. Yes, I think this species is declining faster than the other ones.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other question? I think we don't have anyone from YouTube.
I have one. I have
yes,
one comment.
Go ahead, Vale.
Okay, thanks. Antonella, are you working with Chilean researchers or trying to, or have tried to work with them? Because I know there's big concern about this this species also in Chile. I
Yes.
don't know what they are doing right now because I lost the last news, but they have been working too. So what's your interaction with them?
Well, we had work with them. We have some publications together. Not in the last years, in the last few years, but in the past, yes, we have been working together and communicating also. And they are, well, in Chile, the Ruddy-headed Goose is also considered endangered. So yes, it's of concern.
Yes,
there.
and the other two species are also, I think, vulnerable, at least.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
are right now, they are working at their national bird conservation strategy. So I think maybe it's a good moment to get in touch, not just with researchers, but with the crew that is working with this national strategy. They're nice guys and very willing to interact with Argentinians because we share most of our Andean species. So
yes. Thank you for the data.
The Andes region, and I have more interaction with Chileans than with the rest of Argentinians, usually. Not for some species, I also interact with Argentinians, but I think it's a good moment for you to try to make some or gather, or I don't know, put some ideas together.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. That would be very nice. There are some of the members of the group listening here, so and they are
okay.
taking notes also. Thank you.
I have some of their contacts if you need. Okay.
Perfect. Yes, I will contact you after. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't know. One.
Santiago has a raising hand.
Yes.
Can I? And just to follow the talk with is really very interesting. I was wondering, following the question that Valeria made, how is the collaboration between the groups that are working on this species from Argentina? I mean, if you have to say 1 to 10, you are collaborating, maybe 10, 1, the middle. I mean, because there are many good researchers making good work. There are many efforts to do.
Yes, definitely. Well, I am actually, I have worked, before I begin my Ph.D., I helped Natalia Cosa, who is also a researcher that did her Ph.D. in the reproduction area of this species. And I went to help her in the field. Well, we became friends and we have a very good communication, so that's great. So because she has a lot of knowledge of the reproduction areas, so that's a very good combination. Yes, definitely. It's always useful to share information and to have a good contact between the groups. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. You have a big challenge in your hands.
Yes. Sure.
Well, this is kind of my curiosity. You remember last year there was like an active census on the province, on Buenos Aires and many other provinces, but especially on Buenos Aires. Is any plan of maybe while searching for ducks, I don't know if the census will be done on winter, if there's any idea to make like something similar to have some byproduct data? Have you talked about?
Well, actually, I don't really know. Maybe Lucia Bernat can know something about that, who is also working in that area. That would be very, very useful, of course. But I don't know if logistically speaking is the same to do the monitoring on winter or in the other seasons.
Yes, I was thinking maybe if making like a joint effort, it would be like maybe too expensive to do that sampling specifically for cauquenes. Sorry, I used the English, the Spanish word. But maybe there can be like a joint effort to get like at least some anecdote data that may be useful, you know.
Well, there is actually OPDS, the agency, the conservation agency of Buenos Aires province, is also monitoring the species in the wintering area, and have been working with many of the rangers that are doing the service. So that we know that there are these census over there, but yes, of course, it's always good to join the efforts, and yes, it would be a very good idea. Yes.
Yes, I guess so.
I don't know if it is possible with the duck counting. I really don't know.
No, but I don't think if you can look for cauquenes, but I guess you may find some of them. So you know, getting that points would be of useful information. Well, yes. Brian, see if you can. Yes.
Do you know if it's interesting, there's two different migration strategies. Do you know, are they used equally in the north and the south migration? And is the timing more or less the same between the two different routes?
Well, actually, for instance, then are you between the? You mean between the years that we follow?
Between the mountain route and the coastal route.
No, we don't have any data of migration from the mountains. All the individuals that we capture migrate through the coast, near to the coast. The other migration route was based on different observation data along the years, but we do not have any data on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great, Valeria. Thank you.
Yes, thanks so much, Antonella, for coming. And I especially liked ending on the point that this talk is bringing together researchers from Chile and Argentina, and to have AFO Café be a part of that is just wonderful. It makes me very happy. So thank you
very much for inviting me.
Yeah, and Juanma, thanks so much for your presentation at the beginning, and I guess it's about time to finish here, but our recording will be up on YouTube. I know Matt's taped that, so feel free to send others there once it is live to hear more information if they missed this talk. So
thank you.
Yes, thank you all, and have a good day and a good weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.